it's not solved. Anyway, so we're talking about Kamelia Spencer. And this case begins with her father, Derek, meeting her mother, Sonia, about a year before Kamelia was born. To what I understand, this was a pretty dark time in Sonia's life. She had just lost her best friend, and Derek listened to her talk about her best friend and her death, and she said that no other guy that she met really did this, and this is what kind of made her decide to date Derek. It was pretty soon, well, to me it feels pretty soon after that Sonia met Derek's mother, Helen. Sonia said, this may sound pretty unchristian to say, but when I first met her, I didn't like her. But Derek lived with his mom, and Sonia really tried to make the best of it. She described Helen as a kind and sweet woman, but she just kind of gave her a vibe that was so, when someone's so nice, you just know that they're faking it. That's kind of how Sonia felt about Helen. And Helen said something that sort of seemed really sweet to Sonia, but turned out to be a little strange. One of the first things that she said to Sonia was, I've always wanted a little girl baby. And when Sonia looks back, she's like, wow, isn't that telltale? Exactly what she wanted. And around 9 months later, Helen got exactly what she wanted when Sonia gave birth to a little baby girl. This was Helen's first and only grandchild, and she was absolutely thrilled. Derek, on the other hand, didn't really take to fatherhood. He wasn't really enthused with having a baby, and in fact, when little Kamelia was just 6 months old, Derek left. He took his things from the bedroom that he and Sonia shared and moved right back in with his mother. And this was the turning point. The woman that Sonia once called sugary sweet was about to turn pretty ruthlessly sour. They just didn't get along, and Derek's mother, Helen, became pretty much hell-bent on gaining custody of her only grandchild. But in order to do it, she, of course, had to get Sonia out of the way. And Helen came up with a plan. She started bad-mouthing Sonia to anyone who would listen. She would paint these terrible pictures about how Sonia was a disturbed, dangerous mother, and she also started just repeatedly calling Sonia over and over and over, trying to get visits with the baby. She would lie and tell Sonia, oh, my mom is really depressed, my mom feels bad, it would lift her spirits if she could see the baby. Sonia wasn't really comfortable with this, so she said, let me think about it, and got off the phone. But Helen Grunning was not the type to take no for an answer. In fact, she escalated this already tense situation. She started to file criminal complaints against Sonia. She claimed that Sonia made terroristic threats toward her. She claimed that Sonia threatened to kill her, threatened to kill Derek, and even baby Kamelia. She also accused her of child abuse. And during all of this, Sonia has this seizure, and she ends up being hospitalized for it. In a threats towards Helen, so they actually dropped her sentence down to 2 months in prison. So now that she's incarcerated, she's out of the way, and Derek and Helen are granted temporary custody of Kamelia. Now, she served her 2 months, and there were some things that kind of went down while she was in prison, and when she got out of prison, as she was trying to get baby Kamelia back, that really kind of made people suspicious of Helen. In fact, doctors started becoming very suspicious of Helen. She frequently brought baby Kamelia to the hospital. She claimed that she suffered from shaken baby syndrome, and Helen had actually been coercing Kamelia into faking illnesses, forcing her to seek out unnecessary medical attention and to take medication that she did not need. This child is 2 years old. How do you force a 2-year-old to fake an illness? Like, I cannot understand that. Anyway, apparently Helen did this so frequently that the staff eventually contacted the California Department of Social Services and said that Helen might have Munchausen's syndrome by proxy. Now, if you don't know what that is, this is a syndrome that causes a person to fake or cause another person to be sick. Sonia says, now I couldn't find any proof of this, that Helen even enlisted the help of a doctor that she was friends with. Apparently, there are actual written reports from this doctor indicating abuse from Sonia to Kamelia. When Kamelia was old enough to be able to talk, now mind you, she went missing at the age of 3, but I mean, she can still talk. She told the therapist that Helen would tell her to act sick. The CDSS discovered that Kamelia had been taking medication that she did not need in any way. They found Depakote in her bloodstream, and if you don't know what that is, it's a medication that is normally used to treat epilepsy and bipolar disorder, but Kamelia had never been prescribed this, and likely could have died from kidney failure if this had not been discovered. It is not for someone that is that young. Sonia says that whenever she visited Kamelia, there were times when she could not even hold her own head up, and she's 2, almost 3, and Sonia was just unable to help her. At this point, when they discovered that she had Depakote in her system, the courts, instead of giving her back to Sonia, put Kamelia in foster care. And all of this happened in February of 1999. Now, the only way that anyone could see 2-year-old Kamelia was with supervised visits. Helen, of course, continued to say that Sonia would hurt the baby, so an armed guard was present with her during her supervised visits. That's bananas to me. Anyway, it makes me furious, I told you. So, that brings us to a few weeks before baby Kamelia's 3rd birthday. She's still a baby, I'm just gonna call her that. It starts to look like things are finally going Sonia's way. Sonia was gonna get custody, and Derek was gonna get visitation rights. Sonia said, I thought, finally, I'm gonna be with my baby. I'm gonna be able to take her to the Christmas nativity scene. And she was just so excited. But Helen Grunning was just gearing up for round 2. She was working out what turns out to be a pretty twisted plot to abduct her granddaughter and flee. The detective that worked on this case is Detective Langford, and he said, quote, "This was all premeditated, and when I say premeditated, I'm talking months, maybe even a year prior that Helen Grunning masterminded the plan to involve Derek in kidnapping Kamelia during one of their supervised visits. Derek, Helen, and Gertrude, which is Helen's mother, all went to the post office and stopped their mail. They mortgaged their house and sold all of their belongings. Helen got approximately $180,000, and this was the money believed to have funded their getaway. Helen went to great lengths so she could not be tracked by the bank or anyone else. 5 days before Kamelia's abduction, the three of them got new passports in the mail. Workers from the post office remember Gertrude, the great-grandmother, saying something about going to Europe, and investigators believe that the passports might have been a ploy to get people to think they left the country, but maybe they really did. This next part really just, first of all, it sent shivers down my spine, and then it made me furious. Just a few days before she was abducted, Kamelia had a supervised visit with her mom, Sonia, and she told Sonia something along the lines of, "Mommy, they're going to steal me." Now, she's only almost three at the time, but children are very observant, and they hear things and they listen. They might not know exactly what it means, but if she was there, she was listening to what they were saying, and if Helen had been planning it for a year, who knows what they talked about in front of this little girl. So that brings us to 5 days before Christmas, 1999. On the day that Kamelia was taken, Derek had a supervised visit with her. This visit is usually supposed to happen at the CDSS office, but Derek somehow had buddied up with someone there, and he'd managed to convince them to let him take her to the arcade just a few miles away from his house. He apparently asked one of the monitors that was watching them if he could take Kamelia, over to one of the games to play it, and this monitor agreed. And this is where I just cannot. This monitor apparently dropped her pencil, picked it up, and when she looked up, Derek and Kamelia were gone. Detectives believe that Grandma Helen was waiting outside behind the wheel of a getaway car. The monitor that was watching them ran outside, frantically looking for Kamelia, but they were already gone. just left with memories. She said, "My daughter and I will never get back our childhood." Derek is described as a Caucasian male with sandy brown hair and green eyes. He was, and I found this a little strange, somewhere between 5'8" and 6'1". That's a big difference to me. He weighed between 160 and 180 pounds. He was born on July 16th, 1972, making him 27 years old at the time of his daughter's abduction. He has his first name tattooed on his forearm or left shoulder. Which one, guys, when you're describing things? He may use the following names: Derek Grunning, Derek Spencer Grunning, Derek Grunning Glance, and he might use several different social security numbers. He could wear blue or brown tinted contacts, might dye his hair, might wear his hair short or long. He was known to enjoy gambling, which included blackjack. He liked betting on football and baseball and was originally born in Pennsylvania. Helen Grunning is described as a Caucasian female with red hair and green eyes. She was born April 24th, 1947, making her 52 years old at the time of her granddaughter's abduction. She stood approximately 5'5" and weighed in at 105 pounds. She was known to wear wigs at the time and may have dyed her natural hair a darker color. She might use the following names: Helen Glance, Helen Gottlieb, Helen Spencer, Helen Spencer Glance, Helen Grunning, and Helen B. Grunning. Like Derek, Helen might have several different social security numbers. She is a doll collector and known to frequent antique conventions. She's known to suffer from migraines and may need medical attention as a result of these. She was originally born in New York. Gertrude, the great-grandmother, is described as a Caucasian female with gray hair and hazel eyes. She stood at 5'6" and weighed in at 120 pounds. She was born October 22nd, 1917, making her 82 years old at the time of her great-granddaughter's abduction. She might use the last names of Glance and Gottlieb. She was originally born in Europe. Derek and Helen were both charged with child abduction, and state warrants for their arrest were issued January 12th, 2000. The warrant was issued by the Los Angeles Superior Court. On October 27th, 2000, federal warrants were issued against them for unlawful flight to avoid persecution. They've never been found. There are no warrants for Gertrude's arrest. Gertrude may be in need of medical or dental attention. It is believed they may have traveled to southern Florida after kidnapping Kamelia. They had relatives living there. They may also travel to Las Vegas. They do have some connections in Canada as well. And it has been considered that they have traveled to Europe. None of them speak any languages other than English. Sonia still hopes to find her daughter and bring her back home. Caution is advised as the abductors are considered armed and dangerous. Kamelia's disappearance remains unsolved, and her current whereabouts are unknown. Like I said, this case made me absolutely furious. Absolutely furious. First, let's talk about Helen. Okay, this lady is bonkers. Okay, you want a girl baby? That's great. Just by the off chance she gives you one, that does not mean you abduct said baby and run. The fact that they have not been caught and it's 21 years later is completely bananas to me. This little baby is almost 25 years old. Does she know who she is? Does she know who? I mean, come on. I I feel like at this point, if she knew the truth, she would have been searching out her mother at some point. Okay, I'm getting off track. Helen, she had to be the mastermind behind this whole thing, and she really had to be planning it for a long time. I mean, she mortgaged off her house, got all that money, they got passports, planned all of this stuff, sold all of their belongings, and she decided to do it by sending Sonia to jail. I mean, how terrible of a person do you have to be to get the mother of your grandchild sent to jail on false charges, something you just made up because you want that baby so badly? Like, that just, to me, I cannot get my head around the evilness of that. Like, what would possess someone to do this to someone else? Completely crazy to me. So I'm of a mind that Camila Spencer is out there and fine and just living her life, and she has no clue that she's a missing person. I mean, when you look back at pictures of people when they're 3 versus when they're almost 25, not very many people look exactly the same, and she may have looked at her own missing persons poster and not even known that it was her. It's just, I can't. The thing to me that's so weird is, like, it's been this long and their identification is fraudulent. Their, passports potentially fraudulent. You can't just move overseas and just stay there. Like, that's not a thing. You have to apply for a visa and, things like that. There are things that have to be followed, like protocol. Maybe it wasn't as strict back in 2000, but really, yes, it was 20 years ago, but it doesn't seem like it was quite that long ago. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to rattle it there. Anyway, this is just completely appalling to me, because if the police had really done their job and really investigated Sonia to make sure that this woman's abuse claims were true, none of this would have happened. She never would have lost custody of Camila. She never would have went to prison for 2 months. She would have a clean record. I cannot imagine going up in front of a court and hearing the charges brought against you, and one of them being potential or attempted murder on your own child. Like, I feel like you wouldn't be shocked by that if you had actually done it, but other than that, you're completely appalled that someone is accusing you of doing something like this. Just, I can't imagine standing up there in front of the judge and trying to explain yourself, because they have already charged you with these things and you're trying to defend yourself, and they're just not really very apt to believe you. I do find it kind of strange that Derek wasn't really at all interested in his baby, at least according to Sonia. But he goes along with his plan to abduct her with his mother. I do think it's kind of weird that he would do that. I mean, you're pretty much kind of stuck. Like, you can't just go back and live your life now. You're a wanted fugitive. You're on the run for the rest of your life. Like, that's a big deal. And that's a big decision to be made. All of this because your mom wants custody of your baby. Just, I mean, grow up, get some cojones and say no. Like, I understand it's very difficult to say no to a parent, but as I well know, sometimes you must do so. I just got yelled at. Anyway, so I haven't done a really good missing persons case for you guys in a while, and this one just try not to do that. This month is going to be Patreon Appreciation Month, so they're getting a new video, at least one new video every week, and they're going to be getting discounts on my merchandise, which is also linked down below, and they will be in the running for a gift card from me, just as a way for me to show my appreciation to them. Now, you will be eligible for this if you are a patron of mine at the end of this month, so there is still time for you to sign up if you're interested in any of that. No pressure at all. I just want to say thank you to those people once again for supporting me. I really couldn't do it without you. Thank you guys so much. Please tell me down below what you thought about this case and if it made you as furious as it made me. I would love to hear your case suggestions to add them to my list of things you really want to see. I am thinking about covering some of the bigger cases in some series, potentially over on Patreon. I haven't really decided yet. I tried to do more unknown cases here on this channel, which might not make me so popular. People tend to listen to cases they know more, but I think that cases like this need to be brought to attention. Maybe Kamelia is your next door neighbor and you recognize her from the thumbnail. I can always hope that my little voice makes a difference. Anyway, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe if you're not already. We are so close to reaching 5,000 subscribers, which is crazy.